Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us so far. So I'm just going to wait 1 extra minute just for the remainder. Yeah, we're starting to see a flood of people jump in now, which is fantastic. I hope you're all well this morning. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Stuart. Today's webinar is going to be really good. I have a really good feeling about that. So thank you everybody for joining us. We'll just wait a few extra seconds just for people to flood in, and then we can get started. So, ladies, Haylee and Amy, if you could please stick your cameras on. Wonderful, thank you. So I think we do get started because it is 10:30 and there are people here and waiting, and of course anybody else could come join us late. So look, thank you everybody. Really appreciate your time. As I said, my name's Stuart. Today we're joined by 2 ladies who operate out of New Zealand, and the focus or the topic of discussion today is of course collaboration. Now I think considering where we are in the world today with COVID, particularly in the accounting space, the increased pressure on being able to support all of your clients, perhaps more so than ever. At this particular time in various locations around the world, collaborating has probably never been more relevant at this point in time to share resources, to make sure that you don't burn out, and of course to continue to try and support the small businesses that you are all servicing around the globe. So I really do hope you're going to find today's webinar extremely valuable, give you ideas if potentially you've had thoughts around working with other industry peers and haven't necessarily been able to find the right relationship or the right approach to being able to start or engage in that particular mindset or frame. Then I really think this is going to be an extremely valuable learning for you all, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions off the back of it as well. So first things first, without further ado, a bit of introduction. So as I said, my name's Stuart. For those of you who know me, thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't, I guess I've been part of the furniture here at Futurely for pretty much since the office opened in August 2015. I do come from an accounts background, so I have worked in practice before, but for the last 5 or 6 years, I've definitely been sitting in the Futurely spectrum where we are supporting accountants and bookkeepers and VCFOs all over the world with process change and of course the ability to start to increase your deliverables. Now joining me today, without further ado, are the 2 ladies. So you got Haylee Wrenn from Accountabill, Haylee Wrenn, from Accountabill, and Amie Lorenzen from Figuration. So, ladies, if you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction, and I guess we can move on and get started.
Okie dokie. What do you mean by introduction, Stuart?
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about Accountabill. Tell us about how you, I guess, have found yourself on the webinar with me today.
Okay, so Accountabill, we are based in the not so sunny Hawke's Bay today. We are bookkeepers. We work with businesses, primarily startups and companies in financial difficulty. So we take the clients no one else wants, and we actually do all of the stuff that accountants would like to do but don't have the time to do it. So we very much are full bookkeepers, and we are accountants as well, but we specialise in startups and financial difficulty clients.
Awesome. And Amie?
Yeah, so we're Figuration. We're based in Orewa in Auckland. We do bookkeeping, accounting, and business consulting, so along the lines of business planning and coaching and that sort of thing. We work with any SME that is looking to grow. We're all about growing stronger communities, so any small business, small to medium business that's looking to grow, we offer the services to be able to support them to do that.
Awesome, thank you. So look, I think where we start the conversation today is, of course, I completely understand, the goals for you both is, of course, to help support small businesses and to succeed. Amie, as you said there, really focusing on growth and being able to continue that growth. I think for the benefit of everybody today, because you are not working in the same businesses, I think a really nice place to start would be to really define the roles that you both kind of fulfill on the SMEs that you work with. Because I think often what can sometimes happen is there's a lot of blurred lines when you start potentially looking at using outside resource that maybe isn't part of the single business, and being able to identify at what point the role or the service then moves from one side to the next. So it'd be really interesting, I guess, to hear, I guess, firstly, how you guys, or gals, I should say, how you ladies first became acquaintances, and then I guess how that has then helped you determine the services that both of you can provide to really support the clients that you do.
I think, so I met Amy actually through the Bookkeepers network quite a few years ago. So Amy's one accountant that I actually contract to. I work with a number of different accountants. And I think when we're talking about roles and things like that, it very much does relate to the relationship and the communication that you've got. So with Amy, I worked with some of her debt cases. On my other clients, I actually do everything up to I can actually complete the work papers and all that sort of stuff for the accountant then just to go ahead and prepare the financials. And some of my others, we just do the bookkeeping on a day-to-day basis and provide management reports. So where that blurred lines comes in is when there's actually not very clear communication up front and an agreement on whose actually role is each task. And I think with Amy, for an example, you know, these are the tasks that I do, and then she did everything else. And when it came to actually communicating, anything that I did with the client, Amy was kept informed, and vice versa. And the same thing with me negotiating debt with Inland Revenue. IRD sometimes likes to play games a little bit, and so they'll ring me and have a discussion with me, and then they'll ring the accountant and have a discussion with them, hoping to actually get different information. But because we've actually kept communication lines open, and we've got that three-way between us, me, the accountant, and the client, that's not possible. So, Amy, what's your thoughts around the blurred lines thing?
Yeah, with Haylee and I, the way that we work, it's pretty clear, because she, my clients, when they need debt issues at IRD, she knows exactly what her role is, and I know what her role is. So it's pretty clear there. Working with other bookkeepers and accountants, it definitely can get blurred. I always start off with a really good scope of work. So if I'm coming in as the accountant, my first protocol is to go to the bookkeeper and ask what their scope of work is. So then I know exactly what they've priced to do and what they're doing, and then we kind of work it from there. I also think the IRD plays games, but the clients can too. So you know, if they get the wrong answer or what they're not looking for from the bookkeeper or accountant, they'll go to the other one, and vice versa. So that communication is really, really important to always have it, just to stop those little games that can and do get played quite often. It's definitely a common practice for sure, and I think that can be applied to outside of business too. You know, if there's multiple places for people to go and research on, if they don't like the answer they're given for one reason or the next, then they potentially might go elsewhere and look for some more. So in terms of that, then obviously managing expectations, both internally and externally for the client, making sure the client knows exactly what either you are going to provide. Are there any particular common problems that you see most SMEs make, which then enable you both to be able to support the clients that you have done in the past?
You go, Amy.
Oh, there'd be a huge list. I think the biggest one is just always worried about price and always looking for a cheaper option and cheaper way of doing things. Especially in the bookkeeping industry, the work that we can do is really, really undervalued, and unless that what you can actually do is communicated really well, then they just don't see the value in it, and they go off and do everything themselves. And I always say that you never know what a really good bookkeeper can do until you've had a not so good one, or you've done it yourself and seen, and then had a good one come in and seen the mess that was created and then cleaned up. Small businesses generally aren't very good at business. They're very good at their trade, and I really recommend that they get some kind of support to learn about business and know how business works.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. They try and do everything themselves to save money, and I think here at Accountable, we've actually developed the Accountable community. So this is where business owners actually come together and actually support each other, and we run small business startup little coffee groups where people can actually share knowledge and stuff like that. And in one of our sessions, one of our more established businesses was explaining when they started out, rather than actually pay an extra $10 for a fuel card, they would drive around town just dropping the fuel card off to the next vehicle that wanted it. So I think the key thing is they look so much about the price and the money that it's going to cost them. They don't look at the benefits as to what they could actually achieve by working with a really strong team.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a feeling, or I guess a response that majority of people on the call today are going to have experienced to some level of degree across their portfolio. Because of where we are today, COVID, obviously cash flow is at an all-time high in terms of the reliance or the visibility that people are now screaming out for. That, there's obviously other things that the governments are trying to support with small businesses. But what do you do in that situation where the client is extremely cost sensitive? They potentially don't have the education to really understand the value that one side or the next is bringing to the table. How do you tackle that typically, or what advice could you give to anybody joining us today about how you've had to kind of sit down with a client and really explicitly kind of outline, these are the services that you get, this is the value of the service, and there's obviously a team of other people we can bring in to help with other areas of business as well?
I think during COVID, we started our online education program back in January, and one of the first things that we did was actually ran a webinar about learning how to understand your financial accounts and what that means. During COVID, we amped that right up, and we did quite a few webinars. And what we sort of got out of that was that business owners now with a little bit of knowledge actually wanted to learn more. You don't know what you don't know, and so the more information that we gave to them, the more support that we gave to them, the more willing that they were to actually take on advice from other experts. So with us here, we've got a full network, I suppose you could say, of specialists that we refer out to, and we all sort of work really well together. And that could look like me sitting down with the marketing person and the client, and we all sort of talk about, this is the financials and this is the marketing and this is what it's going to cost. And so it's really a wraparound service. And what that's actually done is people that weren't prepared to spend money during COVID, they've now actually realised that if they spend the money now, they're actually a lot better off, and they are performing better after post-COVID because they've spent the time and the money.
Yeah. Interesting. Amy, from your perspective, have you found similar things where being, I guess, more proactive and being active with your community and kind of bringing them the answers and giving the opportunity for learning has had the same kind of results from your perspective?
Yeah, we did some business continuity webinars over the lockdown period, and it was around the same kind of thing, just on a one-on-one basis though, not on the group. Group basis, and that was fine, and it was just really working through what your business looks like, what was really important to spend money on and what's not at this time. We do a lot with our bookkeeping. We do quite a high-end level bookkeeping anyway, so our bookkeeping clients were looking at that sort of stuff on a monthly basis, and then obviously there just has been more communication and talks around all those sort of expenses ongoing for the next kind of few months. Another big thing is reminding people that, especially if you're on drawings, just to take just what you need. That's, especially at the moment when the government's been giving out money and we've got loans and we've got wage subsidies, there's a few that have got quite a bit of money in the bank that they actually haven't had before. So it's been reminding them, just stick to your house budget and just take out what you need for now, because the next sort of 6 months are really actually unknown, and that surplus might be needed to sort of get you through. So just being really mindful of that the money that's sitting there isn't necessarily yours just yet. Just hold off before you start spending and taking it elsewhere.
Yeah, which must be difficult to communicate because the governments, I know locally in Australia, I know in New Zealand as well, you know, they're offering huge tax write-offs for people who are going and spending money, you know, on machinery and capital expenditure and all the things that they use, as you said, to perform their trade. But from a business perspective, although the tax incentives are fantastic, maybe not, you know, just spending money because you've got access to it now, not knowing what the future looks like. For example, you know, you look at the Melbourne situation where they're now going back into lockdown, looking like there was, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. Interesting. So, you know, when you think about COVID, you know, the initial shutdown, appreciate, you know, this maybe isn't necessarily as relevant anymore, but combined, how are you prioritizing your time? How are you prioritizing which clients that you would, I guess, provide this service for first? Is that who's shouting the loudest, or is it based on, I guess, your continuation of communication, knowing that businesses were maybe trending towards, you know, regression anyway, and then COVID has amplified the situation for them?
Yeah, we prioritised in the really early days on the people who basically employed. That was the first thing because the wage subsidy sort of came out. So we went through the client list, but prioritised really on the people that were employing, so we could make sure that they had the wage subsidy sorted for them and that they were fine for the wages moving forward. And then over sort of 3 days, I'd spoken to every client and kind of got where they were at, so we knew what was important and what wasn't. After that, we had year end, so then our priority was getting the accounts done for the clients that had possibly paid too much tax, if you like, so that we could get some tax back and get some cash in their pocket, and everyone else was, you know, lower on our priority list, and that's kind of how we've done it. And now we're just working through as normal to get all the work done that we need to do.
Yeah. And Haylee, from your perspective, prioritizing your time, how difficult or easy was it initially?
I mean, because I work with startups and struggling companies, we did things slightly differently. So when this all sort of happened, we arranged a group webinar where all of our clients could actually come in and actually ask questions, so that they could actually see that they're not the only ones with these concerns. My startups have actually performed incredibly well through lockdown. And we've actually had some of our clients going from being little tiny Hawke's Bay businesses to now actually having marketing and a client base nationwide. So because they were actually really small, they were in a position to be able to make really fast decisions and actually make the most of what COVID actually gave small businesses. And so from my perspective, and I know this is going to sound horrible to others, but it's actually been a real positive because my clients have grown, they've actually done some amazing stuff. They've also had 4 weeks where they've actually been able to educate themselves and take time to grow their business. We've been able to do business plans, we've been able to do all this extra work that we wouldn't have done without COVID, because they were too busy running ragged trying to make money. So in that sense, and then it's also our financial difficulty clients, we've now got a really good excuse as to why we can't actually pay taxes. So it's given us some breathing space as well.
Yeah, nice. Now, of course, you know, collaborating, working with an accountant or multiple accountants, working with a bookkeeper or multiple bookkeepers, you know, what have you seen as, I guess, the evolution of the way that relationship has developed? Because initially you probably weren't already working together. So at some stage or some juncture in the past, there has been a mutual client where you have both been able to provide a service for the best interest of the client. That has then helped you develop a working relationship. With the evolution of technology and cloud, how do the relationships continue to grow? And I guess what's been the biggest learnings that you have taken from being able to, I guess, start to work more closely or closer with multiple peers and having different, I guess, experiences brought to the table? Do you find that you're doing less work, more work? Do you find like it's more difficult to charge for it? You know, really keen to understand how that has evolved over time.
I think for me, it's meant that we're actually able to work closer together. So as an example, one of my clients, she's actually a bookkeeper and I'm the accountant. I had a meeting with her clients. I invited her into that meeting. Work came out of that. And then he was like, well, are you going to do it? And it's like, no, that's not my role. So then the bookkeepers actually ended up with more work out of that meeting, and now I have less work. So, I mean, you know, there's a real positive in it. And I think when I look at clients that don't have a bookkeeper involved and I'm doing the financial accounts or vice versa, it just makes it so much more difficult because the information is not there. My clients, when I'm either the accountant working with a bookkeeper or vice versa, it's actually really simple. We don't have the same level of communication because actually everything is there available and it's done right the first time. And we could be working with clients nationwide and not have any issues at all.
Yeah. And Amy, I would say from your perspective.
Yeah, collaborations, it's a really good way to learn yourself and educate yourself, I guess. And the more that you can do it, the more work that comes from it. So you never, well, I've found that I always actually pick up more work by collaborating because, you know, I might be just doing one role and I bring in a bookkeeper to help me do something. And then that actually then leads on to more tax planning or to business planning or to something. And then the bookkeeper has to take on more of the stuff that I've been doing because I can't. So if you're helping businesses grow, then your roles and the work that you're getting from it is going to naturally grow as well. And I can't do everything. I just, you know, we're a team of 4 in our office, and we can't do everything for every client. So especially when you get to certain times a month, like GST time, you know, there's only so many clients that we can do a GST return for because, you know, we get to capacity. So it's a really good way to help us grow, really good learning, going back and forth of different processes and procedures that you can do. And in general, it helps the client get everything that they need. So, yeah, but communication is the key. And I find bookkeepers are really easy to collaborate with. They're great. Accountants, not so much. But I think that's just from a lack of understanding of how it can work.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there any particular reasons why you feel like the bookkeepers are a bit more open and receptive to help or helping or accepting help versus accountants? Do you feel like there is maybe a fear of loss in there potentially of losing out business or losing clients to someone who might be slightly cheaper than I guess what they potentially are charging themselves? Curious to know what your opinion would be on the different mindsets.
I just think that accountants generally, and it's not all, so any accountants on the webinar, please, it's not all accountants, but I think generally they just don't understand what a bookkeeper can do. So bookkeeper is really, it's not about reconciling a bank account, and that's kind of typically what everyone sees as a bookkeeper doing these days. So I just think there's just that lack of understanding that they potentially haven't worked with one before that is really involved in a business. It's no different to having an internal admin person or an internal accounts person in a business. And I just think it just comes from that lack of understanding is in my experience.
And I think I've got an accountant, and I think we share 8 clients, and so every 4 or 5 months we'll catch up, and I'll say to them, did you realise that this client is currently doing this, and this one's building a house, and this one's got a marriage breakup, and he's like, well, why do they tell you these things and not us? But it's because bookkeepers are constantly involved with you on a daily basis, and we've got a different level of relationship, whereas accountants can't. They don't have the time to do what bookkeepers can do, essentially.
Yeah. And I think time is obviously the biggest challenge for everybody, right? For us, for you guys, you know, for most people in business, for small businesses too. You know, there doesn't ever seem to be as many hours in the day as there used to be, I guess, even with all the technology and all the things that, you know, have started to, you know, come out of cloud adoption. So when, you know, big part of, I guess, what we do future for forecasting, as you said, the reconciliation or the trust in the data is what is a prohibitor sometimes in you then just running reports and providing financial guidance to clients. So I think, again, a big challenge that we typically hear quite often is, as you said, Amy, is accountants always don't have the time to be I guess, educating their small businesses about the importance of bookkeeping and, you know, the incredible amount of work that can go before the accountant gets the books, which means they're not having to kind of chase their tail, so to speak, or to spend time fixing mistakes. In those circumstances, how do you introduce the service, or how do you go about recommending certain people? For example, would you introduce Haylee directly to the client to outsource some of the bookkeeping, or how does that kind of usually materialize?
Yeah, so depending on what my relationship is with them and the work that we do, yeah, it's we either recommend someone, or if we can't do it in-house, it's just, or vice versa. It's really just along that scope of work. So really what the client needs, you find that the person that can do that for them. So it might be Haylee, or it might be someone else. You know, there's a good thing about the bookkeepers is that our association is really close and really tight. So we know a lot of people that can do a lot of various things really, really well. And I think that's really important too, that when you've already got an existing relationship with one bookkeeper, that they know that there are others that your filter work through too. It's not, I don't just use Haylee. I collaborate with quite a few of them, and that's really important for them to know too, because otherwise, you know, you're not putting the right person in the right role. You're just the person that you know you're giving them work. Yeah.
One interesting thing, I guess, that came out of the conversation we had last week, I guess more so from your perspective, maybe Haylee, is the good cop, bad cop thing. And you're saying sometimes, you know, the clients might tell you something which they might not tell the accountant, and then of course you two may then have a conversation about, okay, well, why are they telling you and not me? How do the mechanics behind that work? You know, at what stage, or how do you determine who is going to play the bad cop and tell the client they can't do things and they shouldn't be doing that and they have to be considering these things? And then on the flip side, who I guess who's wearing the cape and is really encouraging and promoting to be maybe a bit more creative and a bit more positive towards things?
So I think if we looked at the debt work that I do, that generally gets referred to me from accountants. They don't really want to have those discussions to say you haven't paid, you've got $100,000 worth of tax, IRD are breathing down your neck, da 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 da. One of my referring accountants didn't feel that it was right to actually say to this person, you're about to become bankrupted. And so they just said, you need to speak to Haylee. And so then, you know, I get the phone call and it's like, oh yes, so this is what's happening, you're going to be bankrupted. So on the debt side, I get to actually be quite harsh and actually tell these taxpayers the way it is. They then go back to their accountant, who's very supportive and lovely, and they carry on operating like normal. I clean up the mess and I disappear, and I'm the big baddie anyway. When it comes to the bookkeeping accountant relationship, I'm sort of the one that gets given, I've got that trusted relationship where they can trust me with all the information, and then I pass it on to the accountant. So then the accountant knows what's happening, but they don't need to have those full-on conversations about all the personal details.
Yeah.
So,
and do you feel like that is a... Sorry, Amy, you go.
That's right. I was thinking about this question after we spoke last week, actually, and I was like, good cop, bad cop. And I actually thought back to a client that Haylee and I have had, and I was trying to tell them that, you know, it's not looking good, and if you don't make payments, they're going to take you, and they just wouldn't listen to me. And then I get a phone call going, Haylee's told me they're going to bankrupt me, and I tried to tell you that, but it took Haylee, take someone else to come in and give them that info. And I have found in other times, the person that they have the closest relationship with will always be the good cop, even when you're giving bad information, or not bad information, when you're giving bad, you know, giving them bad news, you'll always be the good cop, because it's just how it is. You've got the good relationship with them, bad news or not, you're going to be the good cop. Yeah.
One of the interesting things, I think, when you look at collaboration, again, this is more so from a personal business protection perspective. If you're outsourcing some of your work, you're essentially sacrificing some of the fee earning potential of yourself. You know, you are passing on that opportunity to somebody else. But because of that, and because you are still able to support the client, you have to, I guess, take it on the chin. You might not be able to do that yourself because you're at your own capacity. Do you feel like that is why you then have potentially a better retention of client, because you've got a support network around that small business that knows that you can support, or you know somebody who can support, as opposed to them having to go search, you know, for potentially a new service provider. Have you found that has, I guess, materialized, and you've seen referrals and I guess organic growth within those clients over the years that you've kind of been collaborating with multiple vendors?
Totally. And I think a couple of years ago, I had an accountant refer me a client to do a quote, and he also quoted and undercut me. So he obviously got the client. 3 months later, I ended up getting all that bookkeeping work because I had to clean up all the mess that the accountant had made. And he quite firmly said accountants should not do bookkeeping. He didn't realise how difficult it actually was. Because we've got such a large network of places that, look, if I've got a problem and I don't quite know what to do, I can actually go out to a bookkeeping community and say, any specialist working with the software, and I can actually bring all of that information into that client. And I think the key thing for us at Accountabill, because we've got the Accountabill community, it is just constant referrals, people wanting information. I can refer them out to the people that can actually help them. Like, there's a lot of things that I sit in the middle of that I don't actually do and make any money from, but it actually means that I've got incredibly loyal clients because they know that it doesn't matter what's happening in their life, I'm able to help them to get the right help. Amazing.
I mean, look, when you think about the statistic that 50% of businesses still fail by year 5, despite the evolution of technology since the dawn of the 21st century, you have to be have the ability to actually ask for help if you need it, or to be able to not just I guess protect that portfolio of clients, as in like you don't want to lose them, because at the end of the day, the role of an accountant, advisor, tax consultant, it's for always should be for the best interest of the small business. And I think working with your community and some of your peers is how you can continue to grow your own reputation and as you said, the loyalty with the client base, as well as learn as well. If you don't know everything about a specific sector, then you have the opportunity then to go ahead and actually learn and pick up something which perhaps potentially you've not had the exposure to in the past. Negatives, because it's not always going to be success. You're not always going to have it's not really going to be plain sailing. So has there been from your experience working together, has there been something that you've had to overcome, and I guess how did it come about, and I guess what were the pitfalls that you had to be aware of?
I think if the relationship is actually set up right at the beginning with clear scope of work, like Amy said, clear expectations as to what this relationship's going to look like, it doesn't often go wrong. I know, like with one of my accountants, he knows very well that he sits down, he has his meeting to sign off financial accounts with his clients. They go, great, you completely understand. They don't understand a word he says. So then he sends me an email saying, this is what we've talked about today, because he knows that they're then going to have an appointment with me and I'm going to explain it.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, I don't think there is actually a negative with a bookkeeper accountant relationship. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, no, you can have times where, say, if you're doing all the bookkeeping work and you do it all, literally, and the accountant who you don't have a real close relationship with because they don't kind of believe in the role that you do, goes and does, the end of year accounts, which you've already done pretty much, and charges them, say, $5,000. And has one conversation if you're lucky with your client. You do get times of that and you think, man, I could have done that myself, but it's not in my scope of work. So it really is just knowing what your role is and make sure that you're charging for your role, and be happy with that. I do have a client who has an internal bookkeeper, and they're not a bookkeeper, part of the association or anything. They're just someone that they've employed as a bookkeeper, and they just make a massive mess. But I've had this conversation with the client and they pay me each month to clean up her mess. And it does get frustrating, but again, we've got our scope of work. So we know what we're getting paid to do, and we do the job, and it's up to the client to decide, who they're going to engage in and who they're not. So it can be frustrating, but I don't think there's any horror stories of it going wrong.
Just to pick up on that. Go on, Haylee, you go. I was just going to say, to pick up on that, I think it's, I think pushback from clients is going to be an extremely common situation for most bookkeepers and or accountants. because you've been told by the accountant, sorry, by the client, that they're happy to continue to pay this resource internally, although they may not necessarily be very good, and you've explained that you have to fix up a lot of their errors, or a lot of the mess they've created for themselves month to month. How does that make you feel? Do you feel like you will stop trying to continue to educate them, and to stop, I guess, pitching to potentially just remove that internal resource or to train that resource? Because I feel like it's very easy once you've heard no to kind of turn your attention elsewhere. But I still feel like potentially there's a duty of care there to continually remind that these problems can go away. They just have to have potentially a different train of thought. Just wondered how you, I guess, manage that yourself, and how you prevent yourself from becoming, I guess, a bit deflated or demotivated by the pushback or the challenges.
Yeah, I think it's all just a switch in mindset. It is hard, and so I don't do this particular work a staff member does. So it's each month, motivating them to keep going. What we do a lot of is trying to do a lot of training. So, every month we find a mistake and we send them through with ways to how you can correct them moving forward. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, it's just part of the job, to be fair, and you just keep on going, and hopefully one day you'll get there. I mean, if it was wasting our time and we weren't making money and we could have resources elsewhere, then we'd look at dropping the client. But together, even though she's not doing the best job, together we're doing a good job for the client, if that makes sense. Yeah. So we just keep going, and it will slowly get better one day, and then we'll be right.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the attitude to have. You certainly do need to be resilient, for sure, because it's not always going to be easy, and you're always going to have pushback, particularly when it comes to costing, and the client's not wanting to spend money that they maybe don't feel like they need to spend. Yeah. But if you consider where we've just come from, or guess what we're working towards moving away from with COVID, cash flow work or cash flow visibility or future planning is always the things that often get left to the very last minute. But were you more prepared January, February this year before COVID kicked in? I don't know if the levels of anxiety and stress that some businesses have had to go through, I guess, deal with, probably wouldn't have been as high, because they would have had a bit more of a prepared mindset. On that, what does the future look like for you? I know you're both active in your local communities. You clearly are going to continue to collaborate with other peers. What does the future look like for you both over the next 6 months?
We're growing quite substantially, just with the startups and stuff like that. And what I'm really excited about is that people are actually coming and asking questions about business structures and is this a viable business before they actually go and do it now. So that's really exciting for me. Sadly, I think we're probably going to see more debt cases in the next 6 months that we'll end up helping and working through. But overall, I think, especially here in Hawke's Bay, business is actually doing really, really well. And I think it's actually a real positive what COVID has actually brought to the table, really.
Yeah. From an educational perspective, I really hope so. Sorry, Amy.
No, it's all right. I was going to say, we're the same. A lot of the businesses that we've seen struggle are the bigger businesses. Even like, we've got hair salons and beauty therapists as clients, and so they were closed down for the longest time. And they're really the ones that then made a lot of money, because everyone needed their hair cut. They haven't had one for 6 odd weeks. So they're the people that are actually okay at the moment. There's a lot of money in the bank, and they're okay. For us, the next 6 months to year is big growth around the bookkeeping to help these businesses with their cash flow and stuff, and also the business planning, because what we've seen is that people now kind of understand the value of, what am I going to do? I need to know what my next step is and where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there, because just treading water like I have been for the last 2 years doesn't work when a crisis comes. So we've got big plans, but to support, there's lots and lots of support opportunities out there. So it's quite exciting. And if businesses want to do it, then the opportunities will be there. We've even got, travel agents that there's not a lot of work coming in at the moment, or there's none. but we're planning on what, so we're going to be there and ready as soon as those borders open or the announcements made. They're rolling stuff out and it's going to go boom. So yeah, lots of that kind of work, which is really, really exciting.
Awesome. With your own respective portfolios, how do you go about marketing the services? Is it a one-on-one conversation where you're calling your clients because you're talking to them regularly anyway, or have you considered doing kind of joint marketing proposals to potentially go and win a business for small businesses who maybe are seeking that level of service from a provider or two?
From my perspective, oh, go Haylee.
I was going to say the bookkeeping community is actually quite strong, and they do a lot of marketing, and it's around making people aware of what we actually do. It's not just sitting at your kitchen table, you know, ticking off receipts. We're actually a lot more than that. So in that sense, marketing from our association is actually really quite strong. But for me, it is primarily, my goal is to actually educate as many small businesses. So we will continue with our education program, and that's something that we offer for free. And I bring in specialists, so we'll be doing marketing. I think we've got a design one coming up, teaching small business owners how to use Canva. So just free tools that they don't need to keep spending money on. So yeah, I don't know whether we could do a joint promotion because we play in different spaces.
Of course, always. Interestingly, just for the benefit of everyone joining us today, you know, you obviously are doing work outside of, I guess, directly billable work that you do for your clients as a way to promote and to continue educate and to continue to support. Monthly, weekly, do you have any rough number of how much of it, I guess, an investment of your own time that you're having to make? Because ultimately it's benefiting your own business anyway, so it's not like there is no benefit to you, but it just for the benefit of people who maybe haven't been able to do similar things or have had ideas but they maybe haven't been able to start. Just curious to know how much time that you are having to invest to continue to run those types of sessions, because I imagine it maybe isn't as much as potentially some people think. But then I'm not doing it myself, so I could be wrong, of course.
No, it's not a huge, and once you've actually got it set up in your systems, it's actually not a huge time commitment. I think now that we're through COVID, I'll be dropping it back to one a month. And so that's an hour-long session, and I just put it up on Facebook, and people book via Acuity, and so probably 2.5 hours a month goes into my education program.
Okay.
But in saying that, I think we've had, in 3 months, we had 308 people go through our education program, and I don't know half of them. Well, I actually don't know most of them.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. So I think biggest learnings you've taken over the past couple of years. Really keen to learn, I guess. These are
Can everybody see those photos? Yeah, can everybody see them? They're from the Bookkeepers conferences. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Look at us collaborating.
I know. And so look, you've obviously been working together for a long time. You know, the biggest learning, I guess, over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, I guess, in terms of how anybody in the audience today, you know, if they haven't got these working relationships with people outside of their immediate business, what do you think is the best first step? Is it through the organizations that they're, you know, members of? Is there communities online, or do you think it's actually just about picking up the phone and just really starting to identify where your gaps are internally and where you can or can't support, and then how to then go and kind of fill those gaps with you know, outside support?
I think it's a bit of both. Definitely get into your associations, because that's a big support network for you, regardless of if you're going to pick up work or not. That's going to help you grow as a person and as a business. And then, yeah, don't be scared to reach out to people. That's all it is. It's having conversations. You know, Haylee and I started working together because we had a conversation about what she was doing, and I was like, wow, I need someone to do that for me, because I don't have the time and I don't actually know a lot about it. So I'll give you your first client. It's just talking to people and not being afraid to to be a bit vulnerable about what your weaknesses are or what you don't know, and then people can help you and you learn from it. So yeah, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, email, and you definitely join the associations that you can.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is a case of, you know, I used to work at Inland Revenue, and I would see stuff that there were bookkeepers involved, and they weren't actually, I wouldn't say they were actually bookkeepers. I think they were just someone that thought that they could do the job. So really make sure that if you are going to actually go down this line and either contract to a bookkeeper or actually be a bookkeeper, actually make sure that you're actually getting the support and the education to be able to support small business. Because if we do something wrong, it's not us that's impacted. It's little Joe Bloggs can no longer actually send his daughter off to ballet. You know, what we do has some serious impacts on our clients. So it really much is around making sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure we're passing on a good level of service.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you're both running businesses yourselves. So the way that you have applied yourselves and your openness to collaboration to your small businesses, you kind of also have to treat yourself in the same vein. Where, you know, as you said, if you don't know it all, there's probably someone out there who can help you with some of those knowledge gaps. And if you practice what you preach, the end result is going to be everybody should be in a better and a more supportive community, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, I think that is incredibly valuable for everybody, and particularly for us. You know, we always want to try and support small businesses. It's why we were built as a forecasting software. You know, it was for small businesses to be able to look forwards, and the fact that, you know, this has continued to grow, and the way that the market is, I guess, using such tools to be able to really promote and support small businesses is really great. Now, we've spoken quite a bit. So what I would like to do now, for everybody who is still available, if you have any questions for any of the ladies or myself, now would probably be the best time for you to ask them. So either in the chat box in Zoom or through the Q&A. Please, if you do have any questions at the moment, please do let us know. There were a couple of questions that did come through during the chat about the session being recorded. Yes, it will be recorded, or it has been recorded, and it will be sent out to everybody as well, so that you can share it with your colleagues or with industry peers. But yeah, does anybody have any questions for any of us? I can see. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can have a look at that. Okay, question from Pauline. What do you see as a good guide rate for advanced bookkeeping services, i.e. up to management accounts and financials?
Oh, many questions. They're about the only thing that nobody shares in our community is money, how much we charge. I guess it depends. I don't know about Australia. Would this person be in New Zealand or in
Pauline, can you let
Australia?
us know which side of the pond you are on?
I know
please?
Australian rates are substantially higher than New Zealand, and
Okay.
I think what that actually boils down to is, what is your target market? Who are you working for? You know, the amount that Amie is going to be able to charge is probably substantially more than what I can charge, because I work with struggling businesses and startups. You know, it very much does depend on your skill set. It's not really about, I charge $50 an hour. It's about what value do you bring to the client, and then pricing that. So, you know, you can do, and that's the thing.
And we do, at Figuration, we do fixed fees, value-based pricing, known as value-based pricing. So I don't have an hourly rate that my clients know. Obviously, when I'm pricing it up, I'm working on an hourly rate, but it is tiered. So, you know, the bookkeeping rates will be a lot lower than management accounting. So management accounting rates are quite high in our business. That's an accountant's role, you know. It's the month-end process, there'll be a fee for that, and then there'll be a higher fee if I'm chucking out management accounts that have got work papers attached to them or something, because that's an accounting task. So I'll be completely honest, our rates vary from $75 an hour to $250 an hour, depending on what the role is that we're doing for the business.
Yeah, to be honest, when we get asked the same thing about pricing, you know, we always get asked by new potential users of Futurely, how do your clients typically charge for this? And we have the same challenge. You know, it really depends on the value of the perceived service that you're offering the client, depends on the relationship you currently have with them. Just for clarity there, Pauline is in New Zealand, so potentially it might be worthwhile you two catching up post the call if you have any specific questions, or if there's a guide that you work off. A question then coming from Tina. So Tina asked, what is your opening line when contacting a client, re the benefits of cash flow or budgeting or kind of management account services? Is there a particular opening line that you go in with, or do you, I guess, relate the conversation back to potentially some gaps that you've seen in some of the prior financials?
It can be anything. So like it can be just a general chit chat. And as an example, it was a general chit chat with one of my clients who said that he couldn't actually find anyone to employ. From there, we went into, okay, we need to set the values of the business. We then ended up creating a business plan. We did an organisational review. We did cash flow forecasting, because then we could work out what we actually wanted, what we could afford to pay these new people coming on board. It's not so much a case of going in and saying, hey, we need to do cash flow forecasting. It's about actually knowing your client and actually picking up what they're saying, and then pushing those doors open when they actually say the right things. That's not
from a timing perspective. Do you think do you think around compliance sessions is when these conversations should happen? For example, we've just finished June, Australia's tax year, and you know, Q1 for the New Zealand financial year for most businesses. Is that the best time to be introducing these types of things, which have got a bit of, you know, actual data to refer back to where you can potentially see those gaps? Or do you actually just think asking the questions whenever you have the opportunity is probably a better and a more successful
I don't know if I work a little bit differently or not, but I won't try and push one particular service. So not everybody should have a cash flow forecast, but not everybody in their business needs one to operate. So I wouldn't have an opening line going, hey, cash is king, you need a cash flow forecast, because not every business does. So I'm a bit like Haylee, it's about discussions around that business and what that business needs at that particular time to help them push through to get their goals. It's all around what their goals are and what their focus are, and then what they need at that time to achieve it, which will vary from business to business. So if you've only got the one extra service that you're offering, so cash flow is your thing that you're doing, it's not for everybody, and it's really important to know that. So you need to look for the signs, and then those conversation starters will be really easy because it's really obvious that they need it.
Yeah, we catch up with all of our clients 3 months prior to year end. So like we'll start bringing them in just before year end, and we'll start talking about what are your goals, you know, what are you planning on achieving? Let's look at some budgets. And generally out of that meeting, we then end up doing cash flow forecasting and doing all that prep work for the next financial year. So by the time we actually do the end of year financial accounts, we've pretty much blown any opportunity to do anything, because that's all historical. So we work prior to and then plan.
Yeah. And of course, at the moment, because of, again, you know, to refer back to COVID again, but of course, most businesses don't know what the next 3 months looks like. So it's actually a really applicable time to be having those conversations about best and worst case scenarios. What is the bare minimum we need to survive and to keep the doors open, as well as, you know, when we can start to grow and to return back to what would be business as usual, how are we going to get there? What are the, you know, what's the activity levels we need? Do we need to bring in additional resource? Do we need to continually train our, you know, your teams internally? So I think having those conversations regularly, as you said, in advance of, you know, maybe major milestones in the business's life cycle or the tax year end, is certainly going to give your clients the best opportunity to ask you the relevant questions at the right time. Question from Lou. Do you have any written contracts or gentlemen's handshakes or you know, gentlewomen's handshakes in the bookkeeping and accounting partnership, or do you treat each case on an individual basis depending on the work?
It's very individual. So like we work fixed fee pricing as well. And so the client enters into a contract with us, and this is what it is. Same thing with the accountant, but there's that communication and relationship that you just unwritten rules, I suppose, that you just don't cross the lines.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Haylee and I
Okay.
don't have an agreement together, but she'll have an agreement with my client when she's working with them, because with our relationship, I'm not paying her, the client is. So we share the client, but the relationships are between us and the client, not us together.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that is a safer way to work, where there was a direct engagement from the client with both of you, as opposed to one of you maybe managing all of the relationship and the finances, and then there's kind of, you know, there's a referral fee, or a contractor fee across? Do you think that's probably a safer and I guess a more transparent and honest way to work with the client?
It would do my
Probably
head
get
in
rid of
if
those.
I had to do to do the managing of the relationship. That would just be a nightmare.
Yeah.
That might be why it works, actually, because it is two separate service agreements, and you've each got your own part to play. So yeah, maybe that's why neither of us have ever had any real bad experiences.
Awesome. Well, look, definitely to consider, Lou, if you are looking at reaching out to somebody, or you already work in that capacity. By the sounds of it, transparency, honesty, and I guess just telling the client exactly what they get from you and what they're going to get from someone else is probably just the simplest way to avoid any confusion or blurred lines. There was one final question that came through from Mike, which was, what is innovation accounting? Now, I'm not 100% sure who that was directed at, but it may be in reference to something we've discussed. So I don't know if one of you wanted to answer that first. Mike, if you're still on the call, if you can let me know who that was directed at.
I'm not sure what innovation accounting is. I think when I worked at IRD, I think that may have been referred to creative accounting, but
okay, just give him a couple of minutes in case he wants to elaborate. Okay, the accountant for startups. So this, I think, is aimed at you, Amy. Innovation accounting for startups.
Is that you, Haylee?
Okay, that would be me. Right. I think when it comes to my startups, they are they can't afford a business mentor if they don't have the money. So what we've actually done is we've run coffee groups, and so these guys all come together and set goals, and I help them as a small group of up to 8 grow their business. Because we're actually meeting on a monthly basis during COVID, we just moved everything online, and I've got national groups as well, so we're already online anyway. And I think that they were in a position to actually run a lot faster when COVID hit compared to other businesses who were non-supported. Still not quite sure what innovative accounting, what that actually is, but it is very much around making sure that our little guys have the support that they need, because working at IRD, I saw so many amazing business opportunities that fell over because they didn't have the support at the right time, and that's why I choose to work with startups.
Awesome. And I think for those of you who haven't maybe seen from Futurely specifically, we have a community, an online community now called Peer. Now, Peer is a place for your clients, your businesses, for them to go and actually join a community where they can ask other people in the same industry how they tackle specific problems. And again, coming back to what you said, ladies, earlier on in the call, you might not have all the answers, but it doesn't mean you can't point them in the right direction or have the ability to introduce them to other people who maybe have some of the answers that you can learn from yourself, and then you can then apply that knowledge back to maybe other clients down the line who also have similar questions and problems. So for all of you on the call today, please do check out our peer community. Please do point your clients towards that, because it is a safe space for them to be able to collaborate and work with other businesses in that space. Also, a kicker for you all, if you're wanting to start to maybe create your own communities, you want to, take something from today's call about what the ladies are doing with the small business startups and the breakfasts, you can create your own, I guess, gated communities in Peer yourself. So you could invite all of your clients into the Peer landscape, which gives them the chance to talk to their other people in their industry, but it also gives you a chance to actually share content to them and communicate them in a way which potentially doesn't require you like you said, Haylee, having to go and find a piece of software and pay for a piece of software. The peer community is free for everybody to register and use. So if you haven't done so already, please do check it out. It's a really safe and easy way for you to be able to start to open dialect and to share content and to really support your clients or point them in the direction of people who are probably better suited to provide that level of support. Ladies, thank you so much. Final questions, if anybody has any, please fire them through. But that has pretty much been bang on an hour, which is very rare. So I think we leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. I've certainly had a lot of value from it. I'm sure lots of people did as well. If anybody would like to reach out to the two ladies directly, can you both maybe just share how the best way for those to reach you would be? Would it be email, mobiles?
Yeah, I mean, you can just flick us an email, check out our website and send an inquiry. It'll all come through. So, you know, we are very much about helping people. You know, the more bookkeepers and accountants that we've got working in collaborative environments, the stronger our economy is going to be. So if someone's got questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Amazing.
Cool.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your involvement. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for joining us. Recordings will come out very, very soon. If you have any questions after the fact or stuff that you maybe didn't want to answer in a forum, by all means, send them through. I will get out your hair. Thank you very much, ladies. As I said, very, very appreciative of sharing your insights. And I hope everybody has a fantastic afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.